Hey, I'm so glad you're here tuning into the show. I'm your host, Megan Walrod, and today we're going to do a mini deep dive into the themes of self-doubt versus trusting ourselves. What is this love-hate relationship we have with self-doubt? And what does it really take to trust ourselves? And how can we open up the channel between these parts of ourselves? So instead of the self-doubt ruling our lives and basically limiting and crushing our confidence and our life force energy, it becomes fuel to trust ourselves and actually create a life from the inside out. So I am giving you some bigger context for this conversation. I've been talking with you a lot lately about the inner critic, and there's a quiz that I created. It's called the Negative Narrator Quiz. If you haven't checked it out yet, you can do so. meganwalrod.com/quiz. 7 fun questions that will help you identify which inner critic is the loudest, your primary one that's been killing your confidence. And of course, I give tips on how to help shift out of it ruling you so it can fuel your life and your success on your terms. So the specific negative narrator I want to talk with you about today. So mini deep dive today into the negative narrator that I call the doubting diva. And like I said, this is one part of 4 parts where we're going to dive into each of these 4 because I want to give you a taste of them and some different perspectives on how I approach this so that you can begin to play with this in your own way and find a way forward with some more freedom. Because if you're anything like me, you're committed to having all of you in this lifetime, all your fullest expression, and to live all the fullest experiences that your soul is here to live. And for me, that means not letting the conditioning that we've been swimming in our entire lives, beginning when we were in the womb. It's the water we live in and breathe in. That is the patriarchy in its most toxic sense. And that's where these inner critics come from. So the conditioning that we received specifically around the doubting diva is this messaging that we can't trust ourselves. I mean, just tune into some of the messaging you might have received when you were a child about you got to listen to what your mom says, what your dad says, what your teacher says, what your guidance counselor says, what the authorities say. The authority has always been someone outside of you, hasn't it? No one most likely asked you when you were younger, well, what do you know about this? What's your gut say? What's your heart say? What does your intuition say? It's more of that. Listen to what your fill in the blank said. Do what they said. They know what's best. So we grew up not having this training ground to really grow our self-trust and to listen to ourselves and our gut and our heart and our intuition. Instead, we learn to ask the questions of other people. What should I do? What do you think about that? Do you think that's the right choice? And there became some standard of there's a right choice, a wrong choice, a good choice, a bad choice. And you better make the right choice. Otherwise, you're going to end up in trouble. So trusting ourselves became something that seemed dangerous because, wow, they don't think I should do that. If we even did listen to ourselves and presented that idea outside, you might have had this experience where you were met with, that's ridiculous. That's never going to work. That didn't work out for you so well the last time. What makes you think it's going to work out this time? So there's all this messaging. We internalized that. There's a young part of us who's been with us all on this journey that is the doubting diva. She's a conditioned part of us. And she is just doing her best to look out for us. She thinks it's her job to protect us. She thinks that if she raises up that message first of like, I don't think you can trust yourself. Better ask someone else what they would do for this. Then she's keeping you safe by not making a bad choice or a wrong choice. So the next time you notice yourself doubting yourself, instead of judging yourself, rejecting yourself, or just going into the shame spiral, like this is what the Buddha talks about with the second arrow. There's like the suffering of the illness or the disease or the loss. And then there's the second arrow of suffering, which is the judgment of that experience, like the judgment of the doubt. That's what I talked about in one of the previous episodes about thunder thighs and the inner critic, like removing the judgment of the judgment. Remove the judgment and the shame around the self-doubt. Be with the self-doubt as though it was this little part of you, because it is. You could even picture it. For me, I picture my little Meggie self. And instead of pushing her away or engaging in some kind of power struggle, be like, hey, doubting diva, I see you. I hear you. Because that doubting diva, that's the negative narrator. She, when left unchecked, is going to just keep narrating in your life and lead to that limitation, contracted, crushed confidence life. That's no way to live. You want freedom, right? So naming her, hey, doubting diva, I see you. I hear you. Does this. Instead of it feeling like the doubting diva is telling the story and she's right, you start naming her. You start creating this separation. Now you can see her more clearly for what she is. And when I talked about this love-hate relationship with self-doubt, here's what I'm talking about. We love it because it's familiar. We hate it because it's exhausting. I know that's simplifying things a bit, but we tend to love those things that we keep doing repetitively and habitually because it keeps us in this way of being and doing and operating in our life that feels familiar. So, as I've shared with you possibly before in previous episodes, or maybe it's been in workshops, and this, I'm so grateful for the work that and the conversations I've had. I actually was just interviewed in a podcast by Ursula Pottinga, and we talked about the neuroscience of these inner critics. And so that episode will be out in early September. So if you follow me, if you track me on social, you'll be able to connect to that. So basically, what we love about the doubting diva and this inner critic's inner conversation that's taking place in our mind is that that's become a super highway in there. It's like the brain knows how to travel that pathway. It's sipping, it's souping, it knows it. It's familiar. Oh, yeah. And even though we say, I hate it, I wish I just trusted myself. The super highway is going on and the brain is lazy. It doesn't take anything to go on that pathway. So we love it because it's so familiar. It's like going on that familiar stroll in the neighborhood. You're going to see, that neighbor and those trees and those flowers and those dogs and kitties. It's familiar. We hate it because we know something more is available to us. We just wish we could get out of that head trip and into trusting ourselves. So here's what you want to begin to do is recognize every time you hear the doubt. And here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing. This requires different choices on your part, and this requires practice. So if you're still listening to this, hallelujah, kudos to you that you're invested in doing the work that it takes to change this. There's no magic bullet. Excuse me. There's no magic pill. There is a big mason jar of iced tea. Excuse me. And the superhighway is what's so familiar. So getting into the space of trusting ourselves and trusting that inner knowing, it's a new pathway in our brain. It's like a little dirt path through the jungle, that you're still like moving the branches aside and the vines aside, and is like, is this the path? Is this the way? So it's new, it's unfamiliar, it's less marked, and it can feel scary and different and wrong when you're doing something new and different than you've done before. And chances are, if you're listening to this, you've been tapping into your intuition for a while, or maybe this is a new conversation for you about listening to your intuition. Because when I'm talking about trusting yourself, that's where I'm guiding us into this exploration of our intuition. What we know that goes beyond the cognitive brain, what we know, and you may experience a knowing that speaks from your heart. You may experience a knowing in your solar plexus, right in that spot between your heart and your belly button. You may experience that knowing in your gut. I mean, we have a second brain in there. You may feel it in your pelvis. You may feel it in your full body. You may feel it in a different way. You may perceive it on an energetic level. Whatever way you perceive your knowing, your intuition, and it can be a variety of things and it can be different at different times. This is a knowing that, again, whether you're new to this conversation or you're like, been doing this for a while, let's tune in and see what else is here and available for you in this conversation now that can help you access this even more. Because doubt suffocates our knowing. So when you're aware of doubt, don't try to push it away. Don't judge it. Just be like, hey, Doubting Diva, I see you. I love you. Thank you for looking out for me. I got you. I got you. This is your chance to be the adult, mature you that's like, I got you, little Meggie. And then, I mean, you're not going to call your little one little Meggie. I am. But then you start to tune in and tap into, what am I aware of here? What do I know is true for me? And maybe you'll put your hand on your heart. Maybe you'll close your eyes. Maybe you'll put your hand on your stomach or your belly or wherever. Maybe you'll go for a walk in nature. Maybe you'll go swimming. Maybe you'll dance, because each of us has our own way in to really be in that receptive mode. Here's the thing. I just said, right? Doubt suffocates our knowing. So we got to quiet the doubting. That's why I give the Doubting Diva a teddy bear. This is your way of reassuring her. I love you. I got you. It's time to like tune in inside now. And when we are in that receptive space, we are able to actually hear more of what our intuition is trying to tell us. And some of the practices that I love that tap me into a very receptive space for hearing are journaling and walking in nature. There's also showers and drives, mini road trips. I love those for the things that come through in that like loose awareness. And it can almost be like a diffuse awareness, because we're not focused on the question or the challenge or whatever it is we're looking to tap into. It's like this diffuse awareness. I'm present, I'm open, I'm available. I'm not trying to force anything. I'm listening and allowing what I know to come through, and to be open to seeing it and noticing it. And again, it might come through in words and images and a sense of things. And the more that we practice this listening, and the more we practice acting on our intuition, the more that can come through us, the more information, intuition can become available to us, because we are showing ourselves, we are building this trust in ourselves that says, I am listening, I am trusting this gut knowing or this calling or this intuitive hit So much so that I'm now acting on it. Now it's important to tap in and tune into, is now the time? Because now isn't necessarily the time. Yet when you get, okay, I've got this intuitive hit, now's the time to take this step towards this bigger unfolding, towards this bigger dream, towards this bigger conversation with the mystery. And that's the way that I view it too, is that when I am tapping in and tuning into my intuition, I am really in a co-creation with my soul, with the divine, with the mystery. It's like the intersection of where all of us meet up. And it's in that place where I get to be in a space of longing to give voice and expression and embodiment to my deepest soul's calling. And I am saying, this is my desire. Show me what is important for me to know now. Show me what I could create here. Show me what is it that I really desire when I let go of what I thought my life was supposed to be. And here's the work and I put, if you're not watching, by the way, you can now watch my podcast on my YouTube channel. So in case you're not watching YouTube and you're listening to it on Spotify or iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast, I just put the I think I said work in air quotes. This is the work of cultivating trust with ourselves and this capacity to listen and to hang out in the mystery. Because this is like a relationship that you'd have with someone else outside of you. If you have spent a lot of your life not listening to this friend or this partner or this, remote cousin, not having any conversations with them, then it can take a little while to start the flow of conversation with them again. And if you've been hearing things or receiving intuitive hits and you haven't been acting on it, it's like you've been listening to your friend or your remote cousin say things like, I think if you did X, Y, and Z, you might be really pleasantly surprised, but continuously ignoring it. Again, that's ways that we can unintentionally quiet and shut ourselves off from our intuition. So be patient with yourself, as it may seem like it takes a little while for your intuition to come online again, right? Because you're building that trust to be like, I actually do want to know what I know about this. I actually do want to build that trust again to take action on this. It might just take a little while to build the courage to do that. So you're in a new and different kind of relationship with yourself, where you're learning again and you're practicing this listening, being receptive, and then taking action on these intuitive hits. And here's a few different ways that intuition has spoken to me over the years that partnered in here. Like, I just kind of want to dispel the myth that it might be like, okay, I'm going to tune in and I'm going to meditate. I'm going to own my way to clarity about what I'm going to do for this next launch, or what I'm going to do with this relationship predicament, or where I'm going to move to because where I'm living doesn't work for me anymore, or what it's really going to take to finish my book, or whatever it is, right? Like, I'm just going to sit here and and it's going to come to me, and then I'll know what to do, and then I'll just do it. Like, there's such a linear masculine approach to that. And I'm not saying it might not work for you, and I'm not saying it's bad and wrong. I'm just saying invitation to play with this, invitation to let go of the expectation that clarity is going to come, invitation to be surprised and to be willing to take action on the things that might not make sense yet. Because sometimes the way intuition has spoken to me, see what feels true for yourself, because this can be a really powerful practice to reflect on. Here's some home play for you to reflect on. How has your intuition shown up for you at different times in your life? And how did things go when you listened and then didn't listen to your intuition? Not to judge, but just as like an inventory and a reality check for you. So there was a time in my life after my mom died where I was in a lot of grief, and I could also perceive a knock on my door. And it felt like my soul inviting me on a big adventure. I was excited about this because I was also happening to be asking questions at the time of like realizing life is so short, can change in an instant. What am I here uniquely to contribute? That was one of the big questions I was asking. So soul hears that question and is like, I have some things to show you. So over the next several months, and maybe you've heard this story before, I know I've shared it before in previous episodes. So short version today, over the next several months, as I was grieving and listening and journaling and spending time on the earth, I started to get these breadcrumbs. So intuition might speak to you sometimes in the form of breadcrumbs. So follow the breadcrumbs. And I started getting these little nuggets of gold. And long story short, I ended up being guided to go on a journey on the other side of the world to plant seeds in gardens next to brown-skinned women and children. So again, sometimes the intuition speaks to us in images, and our job is to not take it literally. In my case, it was a little bit of both. I ended up going to Uganda, volunteering for a nonprofit that was basically planting seeds and growing gardens by empowering and educating adolescent girls in these amazing empowerment programs. And basically, they're thriving and building, metaphorical gardens in their community because of this great work that they've been doing. So that was a soul adventure that changed my life, changed the entire trajectory of my life, but it didn't all come at once. Another example of how intuition spoke to me was that at the end of last winter here in Portland, Oregon, I knew I did not like this 6 months of gray and rain. I did not like it at all, but I didn't know where else I wanted to go. And I didn't want to go somewhere to just escape the gray and rain, and go somewhere that my mind was like, maybe I'll go to Boulder. I've got a lot of great people there that I love, and I love the land there. Maybe I'll go there. Maybe I'll go to Santa Cruz. I got people there. My novel's based in there. My novel's going to come out next summer. Maybe I'll be based in Santa Cruz again. That would like make sense because then I'll be positioned there. When my book comes out, I could do a big book launch. I didn't want it to come from this mind, oh, that's a good idea. I wanted it to come from my body wisdom and this deep calling to go to place. Because whenever I've listened to that kind of deep calling, it unfolds greater than I can imagine. And it's me co-creating with the mystery and the divine and my soul, instead of just this, 10% of my body, which is my mind and my brain, which is wicked smart and great to include, but I didn't want it to drive the show. So at the beginning of this last winter, I felt really called. Okay, this is my last winter here. I'm called to be here for various reasons, known and unknown. Yet I was asking my body and spirit, show me, where can I be the biggest contribution on the earth, and where can be the biggest contribution to me? Show me. I asked the question, I was willing to be in the inquiry, and then I let it go. I say I let it go in that I wasn't fixated on it. I just noticed when I started to be called to different places, Bali, Costa Rica, Greece, Hawaii, notice they all have a lot of sunshine. I was listening. I made it through the winter months. I was like, I am not going to do another winter here. Like, let's accelerate this conversation, spirit. Like, talk to me. I woke up one day in April. I'd gone to bed the night before with like, not sure where I'm going to go, but I know by next fall, I'm out of here. I just don't know where yet. I woke up the next day and it was like this clear vision. I'm going to leave Portland at the end of August. I'm going to travel cross country, September and October, visiting friends and family, making sure I see my dad, who's not been doing that great on the East Coast. And then I'm going to leave for Bali, end of October, early November. It was right there, all right there, plan laid out for me. And it didn't come from this mental space of figuring out what would be a good plan. It came from this deep belly, gut, heart, soul guidance. And I just got my ticket the other day for Bali. I'm leaving for Bali on October 24th. And I gave notice to my landlord. I'm leaving Portland at the end of August. So that was a beautiful gift from my intuition. And so I can hear one of you or more of you asking, how did I know that was my intuition? How did I know that wasn't someone else's plan, view, vision that I'd picked up on and was thinking it was my thing to live out? I knew it in every cell of my being. It resonated in me as such correct for me energy. There was this aliveness, this sense of my soul is taking me, guiding me on another adventure. And I know when I say yes, we create magic together. It's like what Elizabeth Gilbert talks about in Big Magic. We're co-creating with the big magic. And sometimes the big magic looks like creating a novel like I've done. Sometimes it looks like big life choices and big life changes. So I said yes. So that's on. So I knew it. And and I didn't announce it to people right away. In fact, I only announced this publicly in July. I started sharing it with my closest innermost circle in April, started to share it with a few more people in May. I let it be a seedling, something that I was nurturing and really tuning into. Because here's the thing, when we are trusting our intuition, when we are receiving this guidance, especially when we receive this kind of gift of what can feel big. There's so much I want to say about this. It can feel like a seedling. It can feel like a baby in the first trimester. You know how I've never had a kid in this lifetime, but I know that mothers, it's kind of encouraged not to tell anyone you're pregnant until a certain point along in the journey, right? Like you just be with that baby and nurture that baby. I mean, we know there's many reasons for that. Yeah. So whether you enjoy picturing it as like this little baby or a little seedling, there may be a period of time where it's just important for you to tend to the seedling and let the seedling tend to you. This almost chokes me up to talk with you about. This seedling of an idea is a gift for you. It is being divinely, in my belief, divinely gifted to you from yourself, from your greater co-creation with mystery, with soul. Let it tend to you. It is inviting you on a journey of becoming, of evolving. Because the person that I'm becoming, who says yes to Bali and being this is an important part of the Bali story, that it's not just Bali for a vacation, it's about digital nomad adventure for an extended period of time. And I might go to Bali, and here's what I know right now. I'm going to come back to the seedling tending. I might go to Bali for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then be like, oh my God, I came here so that I could have that conversation with that person to discover this place here. And that's where I'm going to travel to next. Or I might fall in love with this place in Bali and end up staying there for years and continuously renewing my visa and going and making short trips to other places. You know what I mean? I am surrendering to how it shows up. I am allowing myself to be in a co-creation with the mystery. And this is the dance with our intuition. Right now, it feels like Spirit's given me a pretty big picture for what's next. Yet I know this is one bit, one chapter of a larger story that is my life. So there's a surrender that occurs. There's a letting go of thinking I know how it's going to look or should look. And so with this seedling, it's really important to let go of expectations. Like one of the expectations I might have had is like, oh, Spirit's guiding me to Bali because I'm going to meet the person I'm going to fall in love with and I'm going to find my life partner. No pressure, right? No expectation there, right? So it's like noticing the pressure and the expectations we put on this little seedling, noticing them and then letting them go. And there can be this conversation of, and what else? What else do you want to show me? What else do you want to show me? And sometimes there's this energetic conversation that occurs that is beyond words, that's just a communion that is occurring, that by being open and saying yes to this intuitive vision, calling, knowing idea, we are feeding it. It is feeding us. It's like that infinity loop that also includes spirit. So it's like the Celtic triple spiral. And you keep just moving forward one day after the next. You might ask questions like, is today the day to get a ticket to Bali? Is today the day to make plans for this next thing? Or is today the day to just bask in knowing I am keeping my word to myself to not continue staying in a place that doesn't bring me alive? I am committed to my path of listening, of saying yes, of living my yes. And that bolsters a confidence and a courage to then be willing to take the actions and make the choices and have that shift in how we view ourselves. The being, the who we're becoming is such an important part of this journey of listening and acting on our intuition. So the antidote to self-doubt is not blind faith. The antidote to self-doubt is trusting yourself and cultivating your intuition using all these different questions, approaches, that kind of thing that I've shared. And I invite you, actually, I have a question for you. How does your intuition communicate with you? And has your intuition been guiding you towards something recently that you haven't acted on? And this would be a helpful thing to unpack, possibly in some journaling, possibly in some coaching or therapy. What's stopped you from acting on that intuition? And what could help you have the confidence, the clarity, the courage to move forward with that? And if you've been asking for some wisdom from your intuition and you feel like you haven't been hearing it, I invite you to consider, have you not been hearing it? Or is it actually just a deep truth that you haven't really wanted to face? Because you know that if you face it, your life is going to change pretty dynamically. And I've talked about this in previous episodes too. I wish I could tell you exactly which ones to refer to my own story where I share my journey of being in a partnership, feeling really stuck and miserable and not sure what was wrong. I was starting to have these mysterious health symptoms. And what it came down to was I knew it needed to change. I was just in total denial and fear about what was going to be required of me. Yet here's what I've come to see. again and again and again, and I'm going to be fully honest with you in this moment. I'm sharing with you what I'm getting to receive as my own medicine. This is so often the case for those of us who are messengers, oracles, channels, here to share messages with the world, medicine with the world, is that it is in the speaking, in the sharing, that we're not only receiving our medicine, we're often getting to drink our own medicine in the sharing it. And often it's something that we require to hear again and again. So I just want to speak to that. My intuition is guiding me to do that. So the thing that I was going to say, here's what I know, is that every time that I have said yes to my intuition and stepped into that path of trust and faith and allowing that inner guidance to guide me, my life unfolds with more synchronicities, more possibilities, more magic than if I had just approached it from like a mental figuring it out or letting doubt and the doubting diva, negative narrator, run the show. Because when she's running the show, I'm like operating on this much of myself. When I'm loving her and listening to my intuition, so much more is flowing through me because I'm co-creating my life with the divine. So I want to read something to you before we go. I want to read something that just came through me a little bit earlier today. In a world that profits from your self-doubt, trusting yourself and your intuition is a revolutionary act. So be courageous. Listen to and act on that quiet inner voice. It will feel uncomfortable to leave your comfort zone. That's the point. That's where you come more fully alive. Trust that wherever your intuition is guiding you is just the adventure your soul is here to experience. And what if it turns out better than you can imagine? Won't you be so grateful you listened and trusted yourself? All right. So here's what I'm going to invite you to do to really let all of this land, to really allow this to be more than just a great episode you just listened to. Going to invite you to head on over to the private Facebook group, Live Your Yes. And I'm going to have a post in there the day that this episode comes out. I'm not quite sure what day it will be yet, but you'll be listening to it. There's going to be a post in the Facebook group about intuition that invites you to share on that post. I'm going to invite you to share what's your big takeaway from this conversation. Maybe it's about how your intuition speaks to you. Maybe it's the admittance that your intuition has been guiding you to do something you haven't been listening and now you're going to listen. Maybe it's to speak out loud for the first time or in writing an intuition that you're following now. Maybe it's a question about intuition. Whatever it is, share it in the group. Let's together create more of a conversation around these themes so that we can inspire and uplift each other and really reaffirm that walking the path of the wise, wild women that we are, it really is about letting our intuition guide us. Like, let that become the new normal, so to say. So I look forward to seeing your comments over in the Facebook group. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I hope it was a contribution to you. And let me see if there's anything else that wants to be shared before we go. Let's just take a moment right now to love the doubting diva that lives in each of us, that little girl who's just trying her best to keep us safe. Let her know, I see you, I love you, and I got you. And you can say this, repeat this after me too. I can trust my intuition. I can trust myself. I can trust my inner guidance. All right. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. For now, take care. Go share in the Facebook group and have so much fun trusting yourself. Bye-bye.